if you can draw a line of sight to the customer groups, still respecting the risk management, still respecting the processes that are absolutely necessary, not the processes that are there.
Yeah.
I find it's a revolution, and it frees up a lot of the technical and analytical people in their thinking. It's just like they're completely rejuvenated.
Hi, I'm Tracy Lovejoy.
And I'm Shannon Lucas. We are the co-CEOs of Catalyst Constellations, which is dedicated to empowering Catalyst to create bold, powerful change in the world.
This is our podcast, Move Fast, Break Shit, Burnout, where we speak with Catalyst executives about ways to successfully lead transformation in large organizations.
And today I am super excited. We finally did it. I'm here with Paul Lestrange. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you very much, Shannon. Great to be here. Great to finally get together.
We did it. Paul is the founder of Quantum Advisory Services, supporting chief technology officers and IT executives to navigate the complex world of technology delivery for global organizations. Paul has served as a catalyst in large public and private companies in consulting, consumer products, and fashion retail industries, and focused on supporting the growth of powerful consumer brands, including Mars and PVH Corp, owners of Tommy Hilfiger and Calvin Klein, Bacardi, Philip Morris International, and more. Paul brings global expertise to his Catalyst roles and unique perspectives on running world-class IT delivery teams. All right, so that's the high level, but we'd love to hear about your journey through the catalytic lens. Maybe you can share a few career highlights that you're proud of, things that help us see your catalytic nature.
Great, would love to. I've been reflecting on this as I've been preparing for this interview, and something that really struck me is my name, Lestrange or Lestrange in French, is really driven from people who join different groups around the world. And if I look back into my ancestors, there's a whole lot of people who first were engineers, and secondly, people who have gone from one side of the world to the other to build something or deliver something or make change happen. And so I'm convinced that I must have some DNA, and I'm sure most catalysts have some DNA that really drive them to be who they are. And so the whole nature and nurture situation, I think, brings us to where we are. I love solving problems. I've spent a lot of time working with the internal IT organizations. I mean, it's fascinating that IT is very much a catalyst and a change agent for large organizations. And at the same time, the IT organization itself is constantly changing. And I've played a lot of roles in IT, and the one that I've really gravitated to the most is the role of constantly changing and reinventing IT itself.
Amazing. Do you want to give a couple examples of how you've done that, how you've been the catalyst for the Catalyst IT organization?
Sure. So often I've come in as the chief technology officer. And then, so you generally have a chief information or chief digital officer and a chief technology officer. And the chief technology officer very much focuses on bringing new technologies and infrastructure into large organizations. And over time, that role has really become, in many organizations, the COO of IT, the chief operating officer of IT. And it tends to bring in your operations teams, your delivery teams, and then by bringing together all those elements of IT, you're constantly challenged to reinvent that. And that's where you put in place ecosystems with third parties. That's when you apply the technologies that we're applying externally in the business into IT itself, like machine learning, like AI, and you're using all those different techniques and technologies to transform internally the IT organization so it can deliver cheaper, faster, better. And all three are possible in the IT world.
So I'd love to understand with that lens how you identify with the concept of catalyst, especially a catalyst, and how being a catalyst can support you as an executive.
So I love the name Catalyst. Actually, I was looking for a name, and then when you brought it up to me, it completely reflects how I operate into an organization. Um, you know, I love change myself. I love coming into a new organization, looking at the organization, look at where I can add value. Um, I'm always interested in, finding a new mousetrap to do something or to build something. And so I'm always looking for that challenge, that constant challenge to come in and make change happen. Um, and, another dimension is I really believe in gaining as many experiences as possible to have in your toolkit how you can actually make change happen in an organization. And, I've taken sabbaticals, I've worked for startups, I love cooking, I love travel, I love the stock market. I mean, the the best information I get around technology is also following those companies on the stock market as well. And so what I do is I use all those experiences that I've gained from either hobbies or personal interests and my professional career to solve problems in the internal IT organization. And I think it's very powerful to use all those different dimensions.
It's spot on with how we think about catalysts. Like I often talk about like the sensing and the dot connecting. It's like you read a sci-fi book, you read a McKinsey report, you talk to customers, you have your external things. And from that, these things start to emerge about ways that we can help the organization transform. I'm curious if there was a moment when you realized as a catalyst, but maybe obviously not having that term, that you operated differently from some of your peers, either in other IT roles in other organizations or internally in the places you were working?
Definitely. So because I gravitate towards the delivery organization, a lot of delivery and technical and operations people, they're very analytical. They're very process driven, and like structure, can become risk averse over time, and that's just the nature of the role because we're constantly faced with cyber threats, problems happening around the world, things breaking that you need to fix. And I would always come in with a perspective of we need to be close to the customer. We need to understand how we're impacting the end customer. And a lot of what I do when I come into an organization is to work with the team on pulling them out of the process, because people tend to really love the process. And the process gets more and more complicated over time as we add layer and layer of complexity, and really start to get people to identify the customer groups they're serving. And in a large public organization, it can be the end consumer or the end customer. It can be the employees themselves, or it could be the shareholders. And if you start to draw a line of sight to the work that everyone's doing in the delivery and operations organization to how they're benefiting those customer groups, I find that it's a complete revolution in the way people think. And and I started to realize that I do that. And the more I do that, the more success I had. Um, and so you do see a lot of, because I work for private and public companies, you do see that more natural in private companies because you can identify the owners. And often, when people are working, or, there is this desire to constantly please the owners and do the right thing by the owners. And
Yeah.
so you do see that more often, and people are sort of looking at how to do things better, how to save costs, because they see who the owners are, and they want to do the right thing by them. In a public company, it's more complex. So
Yeah.
if you can draw a line of sight to the customer groups, still respecting the risk management, still respecting the processes that are absolutely necessary, not the processes that are there,
Yeah.
I find it's a revolution, and it frees up a lot of the technical and analytical people in their thinking. it's just like they're completely rejuvenated.
Yeah, it's so fascinating, the impact of quarterly earnings on driving transformation and leading change. We could probably have a whole hour-long conversation about that. But I would love to pivot. I mean, I think that that's a great segue to understand like maybe one or two of the biggest challenges that you faced as a Catalyst executive, and how you worked through them. What was most helpful?
Yeah. So, uh, as being in IT as an executive for a long time, a lot of the work we do is restructurings or outsourcings. And as you play those roles, you're looking for a combination of building the right ecosystem where your internal organization is focusing on what is unique to that business or that organization, and then you use third parties to help you with a lot of commodity activities as well. While you're making that change, you need to keep things running, and you need to prevent any outages. And what a lot of people aren't aware of who don't work in IT, there are hundreds of thousands of people out there every day, so dedicated, making sure that things are running every day. And while you're making that change happen, you need to make sure that you're managing the risk at the same time as introducing the change in the restructuring. And what I find I need in that is to make sure that I have the right team with me. And I've seen some of your previous guests talk about the right number two and the right team members with them that balance them. I am a big change agent. I come in and I make change to an organization, but what I also know that I need next to me is people who are my reality check, people who help me manage risk, people who call out to me when I'm about to cross the line. And I've done many restructuring activities and many redesign of the IT organization activities. And I find those people very, very valuable to have next to me. And I actually look for them. As soon as I move into an organization, I look for those people who can guide me. I don't always listen to everything they say, but they're essential for me being successful.
It's such a powerful moment, was it, when as a Catalyst executive, I don't know, for me, there was sort of like a letting go. It was like this liberation of, oh, I can have like a chief of staff and a VP of operations, like people who are playing different functions for me, excuse me, to do that. I am curious about that nuance that you said at the end, which is, as a leader, how do we invite the, today we would call it psychological safety, but on a, one-on-one with those people who are supporting you, where it's like, I invite it. It doesn't mean that I'm always going to listen to it. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I like to have some healthy debate as we're going through, because I'm learning as we're having the conversations. Do you have any insights into how to navigate those partnerships most effectively?
I think it starts with respecting everyone and the role they play. I see too often new executives come in and completely dismiss everything that's been done in the past. And I mean, yes, you need to create a burning platform. Yes, you need to drive change and create a sense of urgency. But at the same time, you need to understand why things are the way they are. And I've spent a lot of time, uh, understanding what people do, appreciating what they do, telling them that I appreciate what they do, and then, building your plan together and recognizing that you do need those different roles to be successful. And I find, you bring people into solving the problem together. Um, that's when everyone's on board and you're successful. And I often find that they're looking for a leader or someone to come in and drive change and help them make change. Um, and as long as you bring them in as part of the solution and part of the team and value their expertise, it's been very successful. I did remember just also another moment where I realized that I, was a bit different, and I needed sort of support from other profiles and other team members to be successful. And it was on a large restructuring a number of years ago, and we did a change management exercise with HR for the team driving the change. And one of the activities was to place, there's about 15 of us, place us on the change curve. And we drew out a change curve on the floor, and the 15 people positioned themselves on the change curve, the different stages of the change curve. Now, I was over here, right on the end. Now, largely because probably I'm the person who drives a lot of the change. So I have the idea early in the process. But I looked back, and most of the team was, stages back, and, up to 6 months in the journey behind me. And that was a wake up to me. And fortunately, it happened about halfway through my career, that, I was not checking in. And this was the core team. So I was not checking in enough with people to make sure that we were all at the same place on the change curve, or close enough on the change curve to be successful. And that sort of changed the way I go into these situations now, where I am actually checking back, and I am getting guidance from people along the way to make sure that we're all tracking together.
It's so powerful. And, when Tracy first shared the Catalyst research with me, and I wish it had been earlier in my career, because I like having that epiphany and just being like, I thought I just wasn't explaining it the right way, but it's like, no, they actually have a different relationship with change than I do, which means that I need to, and it's on us, I believe, as the catalyst, to understand what they need to come on the journey with us, which is what you were talking about right before that. You're like bringing people along, valuing their expertise. Like there's lots of tools that we can do to bring people on that change curve. But I think it's a super important realization for organizations. It does. I am super curious about something that comes up in conversations a lot nowadays, which is if you look at the standard deviation change curve, change curve standard deviations, and if catalysts are on sort of the pointy end on one end, how do you think about, like, in this new world, the pace and acceleration of change that we have today, and the amplitude and all of that, are organizations going to need to shift? If you mapped the whole employee base to the change curve, are organizations going to have to shift a little bit? Like, will there be people who are left off the bus?
So certainly the pace of change is moving faster and faster. I think organizations have to spend a lot of time helping people understand that change is now constant. It's not it's not something that comes in every 3 to 5 years. And I think that's the challenge. The challenge is how do we all understand, and how do we, lead our teams in this mindset? And it's like the learning agile. It's like the learning agile concept. And I think that's where a lot of work needs to go, is that, we need to be in a situation that, it's going to be happening at a faster pace. At the same time, for a lot of the organizations that I've led, we need to manage the risk. And, particularly in the world of, cyber attacks, that, look, in global organizations, you can have a cyber attack that comes through one country, via another country, through an update, and it can bring down your organization in 15 minutes globally. And as we're introducing change and, playing the catalyst role as well, I think we also need to understand how we manage the risk. And that's a dimension that, as catalysts, we need to be aware of more and more, because the threat of, cyber and things just happening that can bring down the brand reputation of a company or the revenue of a company or the quality of the products is just becoming more and more.
Yeah, thanks for that answer. It reflects back a little of my own bias, because I think it is always a great remember to Catalyst to be like, the people who are on the other, spectrum of the change curve have a lot to offer too. And if we don't stop and listen to them about, what is holding them back, they are often the gatekeepers, or that hold the institutional knowledge about what the risk is, or like, yeah, we did try this before and it failed. But if you lean into them, the learnings that we can get, instead of like, I can be a little bit dismissive sometimes, which is probably not always a great way to bring the organization along.
And that's where my experience has been. If you can really value what everyone does in the organization, the risk management side as well as the change catalyst side, and if you can help draw a line of sight for everyone to the customer group they're helping,
yeah,
it really brings a different mindset. And again, in large IT organizations, traditionally you've had this concept, well, things always break. A global organization, there's always something breaking somewhere that you need to fix. And the mindset has been, okay, when it breaks, we're going to fix it. How quickly do we restore things? Part of the mindset shift there now is, okay, we have customer groups we're serving. Every time something breaks, it's impacting one of those customer groups. So how do we get this zero problem mentality, or zero incident mentality, it's called in IT, where we design for things not breaking, from a technology point of view, from a process point of view, and that also, I think, helps people feel valued, helps people realize that, everything that everyone does in the organization is for the benefit of a customer group.
It's interesting because you talked earlier about this, which I wanted to double click on, that tension of needing to transform while mitigating risk on the other side. There's the people who keep the lights on, and then there's the people who are leaning into the new whatever it is. What we see today is there's a lot of organizations who are culturally trying to accelerate the transformation mentality, thinking about, is it a new value and how we work, new ways of operating. And again, what we see is, because there's a lot of focus on that sort of in the employee engagement and the messaging from executives, the people who are in the like mitigating risk and keeping the lights on, which is obviously crucial to the business, can feel a little bit left behind, forgotten. They're like, we're not working on the shiny new thing that everyone is focused in celebrating. How do you keep people engaged in that sort of ambidextrous organization and have them all feel valued?
So that's exactly what I was talking about. So you're absolutely right. That's the way these large organizations are, is, certain people are in the spotlight, bringing new ideas, new technologies, new concepts, and then you have people who are running the business every day. I am the poster child. I am the voice of these people. These people are so important to the success of the business every day. If it wasn't for these people and the dedication of these people, the other people can't operate. As soon as something breaks, there is no focus on the shiny new. There is only focus on getting the business up and running. And so that's exactly why I spend a lot of time working with the operations and delivery people, having them understand that what they do is very valuable to a customer group. And most things that we're doing to be catalysts to help business change, we can apply internally to the delivery organization. So the AI, we're doing machine learning and AI to the delivery organization. We're making sure that, instead of waiting for something to happen that we need to fix, we're actually doing, predictive analytics and, proactive maintenance to make sure that things don't break. We can apply a lot of those concepts that are happening in one part of the organization internally to the delivery organization itself. And so that's what I spend a lot of time doing when I go into organizations. And so being the catalyst of the delivery organization, taking cues from what's happening elsewhere in the organization.
And so tactically, does it come down to like incentives or visibility or reward? Or I'm just curious, like I hear the
It
top
starts
level.
with visibility.
Yeah.
It starts with visibility because IT itself is a black box to many people.
Right.
The delivery side of IT is even a blacker box even to IT people.
Yeah.
And it has a lot of jargon. Again, people are very analytical, very process driven. And I find it starts with visibility of what people are doing, and having conversations just like this with my peers and other executives in the organization to really, um, bring the spotlight to that organization. And once you start doing that, and once, this organization has so much to offer. I mean, it can constantly reinvent itself. It can constantly look for ways to, cut costs, save money, deliver better quality. The talent required to make this organization run well is critical to the total company. And I find by just bringing a spotlight on that and talking about it makes a huge difference.
I'm curious too, one of the challenges that we see a lot of organizations struggling now with is having sort of the outcome slash, change, the ownership mentality around change and outcomes, having people really feel and believe that. And obviously not every organization is inviting that, but having spent a lot of time in IT myself, I know that the IT can often feel like they're the order takers, right? Like they'll just get this long list of things that the organization wants. And so I'm just wondering if you have any advice for people, particularly in that sphere of the world, about how to help employees have an outcome ownership mindset.
So I think we have, over decades as a function, we have fallen into the order taker mentality. Again, I believe IT is one of the most valuable functions in every company. It is a peer function to finance, to HR, to marketing, to sales, to legal, to every other function.
Yep.
If not more, there is no other function that constantly goes through change.
Yeah.
It's really just being able to articulate the role we play and the importance we play. And I think more and more, leaders are doing that. And as we do that, and as we, are better at communicating and have the conversation and drawing line of sight to the value we bring and the risk that we manage, it just builds more and more success.
And I think it's also a great call out because so many of the, we do these catalyst programs with large organizations. And so to your point, whatever area of opportunity that the catalyst teams are tackling, a majority of them in some way are going to have to work with IT. And so we also talk a lot about like having the compassion and bringing them along and understanding, where the overlap of the Venn diagram is so that there's wins on both sides of that.
The transformation in every function is often driven by IT.
That's it, totally.
It's driven by, mobile. It's driven by, consumer engagement. It's driven by, I mean, IT is a thread that goes through every function. It's quite a unique function because there are often, towers with, finance, HR, marketing, etc. IT is a thread that has to go through every function and gets a total view of the organization.
That's right. Okay, I'm curious. It's not easy as a catalyst to sort of always make it to the upper echelons of organizations for different reasons. So I'm wondering if you have advice about like, what has helped you become a successful Catalyst executive? Or maybe asked another way, what can stop a Catalyst from becoming an executive?
So as I said, DNA, I mean, I love change. So I'm attracted to change. I'm attracted to new challenges. This career has taken me on an incredible journey. I mean, I'm living now in the fifth country, due to this career. I mean, I've moved from country to country because of jobs. I think that's the first thing is if you're that type of person, seek the challenges, seek the changes. Put yourself. People often call it luck. They say, "Oh, you're so lucky." Well, you need to put your way in luck. You put yourself in the path of luck.
That's right.
And so I think, and I have moved from country to country, and I've not been a resident of those countries, but that hasn't stopped me. Things just work out, and if you have certain expertise, then you just, you're able to do that. I think associated with that is if things are not working out where you are for various reasons, have the courage to move on.
Yes.
And early in my career, I probably stayed too long in certain companies for good reasons. We have all good reasons why we stay. But I think if you're not being appreciated, if you're not being recognized, if you're not advancing in your career or doing the sort of work you'd like to do, take the courage to go somewhere else. I think that's a huge piece of advice. Another piece of advice is don't get caught up in the process. We often get drawn into following a process and processes. Try and pull yourself out of a process and try and focus on those customers and the outcomes and, why are we actually doing something and who is benefiting from the catalyst role or the activity that we're driving. I think too often in large organizations, they are very process heavy. We get pulled down by the machines, and you just need to fight that sometimes and pull yourself up out of it. I've had a couple of great mentors along the way, and I think one of the best mentors was he gave me plenty of rope. He gave me. I don't like to be micromanaged. But he was there when I needed some checks and balances and advice, and very supportive when I needed him. At the same time, gave me plenty of rope to, uh, you know, he helped me identify what needed to be done, but didn't tell me how to do it. And I think that's key as a mentor in helping people identify what the right thing is to do, but letting us work out the right way to do it. Yeah.
Amazing list of advice. Thank you. As we wrap up, I'd love to hear about your favorite catalyst who's inspired you, past or present, and why.
So I have a few. It might be a bit controversial, but certainly one is Bill Gates, particularly the NGO work he has done. I mean, hugely successful with Microsoft. I think even beyond that is just all the NGO work that he has promoted for a very long time. It's just so inspirational. And the other one is Elon Musk. And I'm sure that is controversial. I just, when you think of Da Vinci and you think of, the change that he brought to the world, and then you think about, electric cars, and you think about flying to Mars, and you think about boring tunnels, and you think about robotics, and you think, I mean, it's just incredible. And not only coming up with the ideas, but actually making many things happen. I think, history will look back in 50 years and say, wow, he brought a lot. So, yeah,
There's
that would be,
no
would be my
denying
number
that.
two.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no denying the impact of what he's done. And also just going back to something else that you said, it's the challenging the outcomes, but also like thinking, I mean, particularly in sort of some of his areas, the customer experience, which really unlocked, like as he was challenging what seemed like established norms or thoughts about how systems worked, he really reverse engineered that from a customer perspective. So yeah. Anyone else?
Oh, many. I mean, um, I like, I like the work Richard Branson has done over the
Yeah.
years. Again, the courage to create, the stories, around him creating Virgin, and just the courage he had to like set up an airline, and then just because the stories didn't well, he didn't like, or he didn't like what he was getting from the other airline, and just people who have the inspiration and just courage to challenge the status quo like that. Yeah, I'm inspire me.
Awesome, Paul. Well, you inspire me. Thank you for the time today. This was an amazing conversation.
Thank you very much, Shannon.
And to our listening audience, thank you for joining us. If you'd like to learn more about how to create bold, powerful change in the world, be sure to check out our book, Move Fast, Break Shit, Burn Out, or go to our website at catalystconstellations.com. If you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did, please take 10 seconds to rate it on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you listen to your podcast. And of course, if you have other catalysts in your life, hit the share button and send a link their way. Thanks again.